listening to another ambitious Entrepreneur Network.com podcast, the voice for entrepreneurs and small business. Now, onto the show.
Welcome to the Christian Entrepreneurs Podcast, daily conversations with Christian entrepreneurs to inspire and empower Christian business owners to walk strongly in their faith, while build a thriving business that honors Him in every way. Now, over to your host, Anne-Marie Cross.
And welcome to another episode of the Christian Entrepreneurs Podcast. This is episode 7, and I'm your host, Anne-Marie Cross, brand and communication strategist, also known as the podcasting queen. Joining me on today's show is a veteran college coach, keynote speaker, trainer, consultant, and author of the upcoming book on the college recruiting process, including a chapter on being recruited for a Christian college, Coach Renee Lopez. Now, Coach Renee has been named Coach of the Year, has had over 30 all-conference players, multiple team academic, sportsmanship, sports ministry awards, 3 All-Americans, and reached conference and regional championships. Wow. She regularly appears on as a guest on many podcasts, including blogs, magazines, and has even been featured on Sirius XM Radio as well as ESPN Radio. She's a certified speaker, a trainer, a coach for the John Maxwell Team, Jon Gordon Company, Positive Coaching Alliance, and she's been on multiple stages for sports ministry with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Now, specifically on today's show, Renee is going to share the most important attributes to building a strong team that's so important as business owners. Why, as a leader of your business, it's important to constantly be looking for growth opportunities, as well as the importance of mental training so you can get out of your comfort zone and think like a rubber band instead of a zip tie. So welcome to the show, Renee.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
You have got an incredible background, lots of involvement, Sam, so really congratulate you on that, and thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom. One of the questions that I'm getting guests to answer right at the forefront of the interview before we dive into the other wisdom you want to share, how did you get into the career path that you are in now? Has it always been something from a childhood that you've dreamed about or that you've recognized gifts and talents in, or is it something that's progressed over your career?
Well, I was definitely a soccer player all of my life since I was a wee little lad of about 4 years old, and all the way up through college. And when I played in college, I actually got injured, and I was very upset and very frustrated because I just always thought my identity with 100% was being an athlete. And God really used that opportunity for me to discover my love and my passion for soccer is, something I could transfer into a career. And so I started to become a high school varsity coach while I was still in college, and then started coaching under 14s. And then all of a sudden they asked me to help with the under 12s, and what about the under 16s? And became a director of coaching for a club by the time I was 21 years old. And I had started to teach elementary school, didn't love it. I was kind of like, about it, but I really enjoyed coaching and being on the field. And so it allowed me to kind of explore that option, and went on to go to grad school at the University of Florida and work with a program that went to the Elite Eight. It was an amazing program. So, God kind of used the opportunities of, being injured and my career being cut short as an athlete to really transform who I was going to become. And now I've stepped out of college coaching after doing that for 14 years and really trying to impact the game at a higher level, and helping develop leadership skills and mindset, as well as working in coaching education programs and helping high school student athletes with the college recruiting process.
Yeah, amazing. And thank goodness that, you didn't allow that injury to keep you stuck, because how many people do we talk to? And I'd love you to speak a little bit into this, particularly if someone is listening or watching today and is at the point in their career at a crossroads where they had dreamed about pursuing a particular career path, yet due to injury or some other situation that's occurred in their life, they now recognize that what I thought that I was going to do now needs to change. Looking back, I mean, obviously at that time, it would have been something that you would have struggled with, because I know athletes can be passionate, about what they're doing. And so what insights can you share with someone that you learned along the way that can really support them in recognizing that it's not over? This is just crossroads and can certainly catapult you into opportunities that you would at the moment never have thought were possible. What insights would you like to share?
Absolutely. I think it was just God's way of sending me on a little bit of a U-turn and, going in a little bit of different direction. At the time, obviously, I was very upset and trying to figure out, well, what does this mean? All I'd done since I was 4 years old was play. And, it just really had me in a situation where I had to explore a little bit different of options and really grow in figuring out what my gifts and talents were. Obviously, I was talented in playing, but I had bigger talents to be able to use that God had given me, and I really just needed to explore what those look like. And that meant a completely different situation, and I was on the sidelines instead of in the game situation. But being able to impact athletes, and years and years later, being parts of some of my former players' weddings, and being in their lives as they choose different careers, or them telling me, calling me up to tell me that. Now my players most of them are in their late 20s and early 30s, and now they're getting married and having kids of their own, and calling me and talking about their experiences now that they're getting suckered into being coaches themselves. So it's been a definite whirlwind. But I think at that time, I think I had to really discover the talents that God had blessed me with, and they weren't necessarily defined by what society would tell us. And I think that's the biggest thing when you are at a turning point or a fork in the road, shall we say, that you really have to just start evaluating, what is it that God's given you of talent, and that you can utilize for His glory and on different stages. And if I hadn't been through the injuries I had been, I definitely wouldn't have been on the stages that I have been on, in able to help impact other people's lives. So, God had a plan and all that. It's not easy to realign, but
yeah, and thank you for sharing that, because I think for so many of us, and through the guests that I have had the privilege and honor to be able to speak to so far, we've realized that the identity that often the world has and the expectations is, when you think of the identity that we know that we have in God and in Christ, has so many bigger plans and bigger opportunities, and we just need to trust and have faith and recognize that, okay, the journey that I'm currently being led on may not necessarily be the one that I thought, but as you said, the amazing impact that you've been able to harness the skills and the gifts, and obviously the learnings as you've gone through your career and continue to develop, has just been amazing. So let's dive into talking about the most important attributes to building a strong team. I know for many of us entrepreneurs, some of us are just starting out, others have been in for many decades. But one of the things that's really important when we're building a business, so we recognize we can't do it on our own, and it is important to expand the team, which is a whole other aspect of learnings for many entrepreneurs and business owners. Now, you've been a college coach for 14 years, as we've mentioned, across all levels, including an NCAA Division I head coach. So over those years, you would have learned and taken with you a lot of insights now that you can share. So what would you say are the most important attributes that you found in building a strong team?
Well, I had the honor and privilege of being able to work at Christian colleges as well as secular universities. And so, I had to formulate a little bit of a plan that I could use in both avenues and both areas. And what I decided to do is we really decided to figure out what was the most important attributes in what we were doing every day, day in and day out with our athletes. And so we came up with this acronym, and here in the United States, it's kind of a funny acronym to use. It's the CIA. And, for us, that means a little bit different. In the United States, it's, a little bit about detective work instead. But for us, we decided that we serve an audience of one. And with that was character is our C, I means integrity, and A means accountability. And, if you really spell those out and really think about that, when you're working with a team, the character, integrity, and accountability, we can put that in a secular version, or we can put that into a real Christian perspective. And, character is really who God called you to be, and becoming who God calls you to be. And, if you start to think about that, God opens up doors for us, and doors sometimes can get closed, like I mentioned with my playing career, but the thing is, we look and we say, we need to constantly be pursuing who God's called us to be, not what society calls us to be. And I think that's really, really important, and then we talk about integrity, and that's really the idea of doing the right thing, especially when no one's watching, and thinking through that. We have so many opportunities as a business leader, or also, as a coach, where we could have done the wrong thing, and we don't always have somebody looking over our shoulder, but God calls us to do what's right. And we have to make sure that we do everything with integrity. And again, even if the world doesn't tell us to do that. And, there's many times in a game situation that we could have cheated, but there's also many times you could do that, as a business owner too, or not treat people right. But we've got to make sure that we honor God and with character, with integrity every day. And then I think it's important to also have accountability and having mentors in your life who will make an impact, are not afraid to coach you up as well and help you in your perspective. And so for me, obviously, that's having some great, amazing Christian leaders in my life and pastors and a small group that I'm a part of and I lead. And I'm so excited to be able to have people in my life that can speak into my life, the truth, as well as times where it may be even hard to say something. And I think that's important no matter you are on a soccer team or if you are a nurse or if you are building a business. It's really important that if we take those CIA, the character, integrity, and accountability, that we take all those attributes together and really live them out day in and day out. I think we're going to be able to honor him as long as we're doing what God's called us to do.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And, from a leader of our business, it's important that we have and continue to live all of those three out. And also, too, when we're thinking about looking at expanding our team, looking at the character of the people who we invite to work with us, we need to get really clear on that. Same with integrity and having an accountability there so that team members know what is to be expected. Do you find in your dealings then with people and as I said, this can be so important for whether you are in a team, a sporting team, or whether you are in business. Do you find then when you see situations that are not generating the outcomes that we're wanting, that you then go back and go, all right, which of these three areas may I not have lived up to? Was there a time or a situation that I may not have been as integral in my dealings? Do you also use each of these three as a bit of a check-in to make sure that you're continuing to really live these out?
Absolutely. One of the biggest mistakes I made as a young entrepreneur early in my 20s was that I didn't have enough accountability. I didn't have enough mentors, pouring into me. And, sometimes you have to seek those out. Sometimes they don't just appear in your lap. And so, I've often used the idea that, we often think in terms of having accountability as people that are above us. But I think if we think about the cross and we think about just the nature of what the cross looks like, we need to have people that are above us who are pouring into us and mentors. We need to have people that are about at the same level as us in terms of our business or our teams or whatever it may be, but also that we need to be mentoring people below us too. And I think that's important for us to really think, we need to be giving back to others that are younger in their careers or just starting out, but also seeking and looking upwards, to have mentors to help us, and whether that's spiritual mentors or business mentors or just, your parents or siblings or a pastor to really help you. But I think it's also important to make sure you have somebody on your right and your left shoulder who are walking the same path with you. And one of the aspects that I really make sure of is that for our student athletes, we always have the conversation is make sure that you're building somebody else up and make sure that you're not being an energy vampire to somebody else.
Yes.
You're not draining somebody else. We're building each other up. And we don't always all have good days. And if we do, that's amazing. Awesome. But the fact is, we need to make sure that we're not pulling other people down. And so that we need to find those areas in that accountability. And, that's obviously, and looking from a Christian perspective, God really asks us to pursue him every day. And, that also means supporting and encouraging others and building them up as well.
Absolutely. And it's such a great reminder. And someone else that was on the show recently said, we are ambassadors. It's such a great reminder that in our interactions and in our dealings, we are ambassadors for Jesus, and the integrity and our character, because sometimes we do have a bad day, and on the sports field, sometimes, and we need to be mindful that before we let something come from our mouths, is this honoring him? So that's a great reminder, because we are, as you said, we're mentoring, but sometimes even in our actions and our interactions, we could be impacting. We are impacting. So we want to make sure that we're impacting and in the right way, and not, doing something that could, not be a very good example for who we know. Jesus was an incredible example for us. Now, you are on the John Maxwell team. You're a certified speaker, a trainer, and a coach. So you're training with organisations, community groups, and of course, sporting organisations. I wanted to share with us a little about how you've been able to apply that John Maxwell's body of work to your team, and especially the leaders that you work with.
Absolutely. We often use, from John Maxwell's work, is the 15 Laws of Growth. It's an amazing book. If you haven't read it, John Maxwell's written 104 books on leadership development and personal development. So I'm sure you all haven't read them all, but I definitely highly encourage you, especially for the entrepreneur, to really dive into his book on 15 Laws of Growth. And one of the things he talks about is the law of the rubber band. And I'm hoping you guys can see this for me. It is just a hairband. That's all I have in my hand. And, he talks about the idea is that our growth occurs when we really look to stretch ourselves. And, I always compare that to a zip tie. Many of you guys know what a zip tie is. In the soccer coach's world, it is our best friend when your nets get torn or rabbits eat the bottom of your nets. Things like that tend to happen. And we would always use them as a last minute to zip a net closed. But the fact is, often we become a zip tie where we're so pulled together and so tight, we get stuck. And we're not stretching ourselves. We have to make sure that every day we're being a rubber band. We're looking to really expand ourselves, stretch ourselves. And again, that comes from having good mentors around you. It comes from having great accountability in your team members, and the thing that we really utilize that for is really the idea is that thinking leadership is influence, and it's nothing more, nothing less, is what John Maxwell says. And you think about that, and it's like, wow, that could also be just transferred into what's God calling us to do and what's God calling us to be. And he's calling us to be the light of the world. And so that means influencing people in a positive way. And if we show people that we are growing as Christians and we're trying to get better and trying to, whether it's being in the Word, whether it's serving in the community, or just helping somebody else out, and being a shoulder to cry on, whatever it may be, is that we as Christians are called to do that. So we need to make sure that we're stepping out. And John Maxwell's ideas, he has so many of them in so many of his books, but I really look at that and go, the law of the rubber band is just so true. And I wear a hairband on my wrist every single day to remind me to stretch myself and to remain positive as well. And, the thing is, I look and I say, that means it's really important that we transfer these skills into the real world. And, most entrepreneurs, are really trying to grow their businesses, but are they trying to grow themselves as well? And I think that's important. You think about it. There's a statistic here in the United States that only 42% of people read a full book after they graduate from college. And I look at that statistic and go, oh dear, seriously, please pick up more books. I can give you a whole list of John Maxwell books to read or Jon Gordon books to read. The fact is, we have to make sure that we're pursuing those things and sharing them. I use social media as an avenue to share a lot of what I'm learning. And what it does is encourages other people and builds them up and be able to allow them to really research, who can help them and pour into them, and listening to things like your podcast. So we're for sure, hopefully, to encourage people too.
Yeah, I could not imagine not reading or developing mindset and just awareness of things. And absolutely, we have such incredible tools, books obviously, but Kindle, we can have ebooks, podcasts, and we can carry around a whole library of information that we can tap into in our pocket on our smartphones and our devices. So we certainly don't have any excuses, but absolutely keep feeding your mind, and that's really important. Look, I love the challenge that you shared about the rubber band. I mean, fantastic. And about, really being able to stretch ourselves and learn and grow rather than being that, the zip tie. So if you think about, the success of you being a coach of the year, advancing to regional championships, and not just one, but 3 All-Americans, I'm guessing that much of the success has to do with strategy on the field, but also mental training as well. So I'd love you to provide, if you can, some insights to listeners and viewers today about mental training, because that is so important. One of the things I always say is we can teach you strategies, principles, give you the tools, give you the techniques, but if you don't have that mindset, strength and training about, it doesn't matter. All of that other practical stuff is not going to land as well. You're not going to generate the results that you're really hoping to achieve.
Absolutely. I have to credit a lot of what I'm about to tell you about is I worked with a mental training coach. Her name is Tammy Matheny. She worked with my team for many, many years, and she is an amazing, amazing woman. And I can tell you, I would not be running any teams in any capacity without her to help and encourage my athletes. And, some of the things that she really taught us along the way, I think was really interesting. She introduced the idea of the word, these 3 little letters, and it's yet. I haven't achieved something yet. And if you just add that on to so many situations, it actually gives you a completely different perspective. For some of my athletes, if they were struggling in their fitness, maybe they're coming back from an injury and they're like, well, coach, I can't believe I haven't passed the fitness test. How about instead, coach, I haven't passed the fitness test yet. And what it does is it completely changes your mindset from a fixed mindset to really being a growth mindset. And, you think about that and go, well, how does that transfer to business owners? And, you say, well, I haven't, started my Twitter feed yet. And, I haven't started a podcast yet. I haven't read 5 books this year yet. But the idea is it starts to plant seeds, and it starts to have the mentality that you are going to be able to achieve something, but it's just a matter of your thinking and your thought process. So we use that quite a bit. We use the terms of we versus me a lot in our teamwork as well. A lot of that comes from Jon Gordon. And he also gave us a lot of information called from a lot of his different books. He's also written 11 books, and I'm honored to be a part of his team as well in presenting. And one of the things that he talks about is the terms of get to versus have to. We used to have student athletes come to practice and say, I can't believe I have to come to practice. And I would hear that comment and I would say, you actually get to come to practice today. You are a college athlete. And I would usually grab my phone and I would usually read the names of kids that had emailed me that day saying, Coach, I want to play for your team. And I would say to them, do you know how many kids today I got an email from wanting to be a part of our program? And it was a perspective for them. Or I'd look and I'd say, hey, you've got some of these kids who are injured that are on our team, and you get the opportunity to practice today. Yeah, practice might not be easy, but the fact is you get the opportunity to do that. And, as business owners, we often get in our own heads and we often think, well, I have to do this and I have to do this. And there's so much on our plates when you're running a business. It's just so much to do. And sometimes you feel lonely. But the idea is I get the opportunity to do that. I get the opportunity to impact people through what I do. And I think, finding ways to have that as a perspective. So if you introduce the yet concept, you introduce the we versus me concept, and also the get to versus have to, it will completely transform your mindset. And I believe that so many people can have that mentality of growing. But it's just a matter of the words that we're saying and the thoughts that we're having inside our heads. And also, who you're surrounding yourself with. Jim Rohn says, you are who the 5 people you spend time with the most. And I can tell you, I spend time with some of the most amazing people. They're authors, and my publisher is absolutely amazing. And, I'm friends with a former senator. My best friend's a veterinarian. I look and I say, I surround myself with people who are maybe in different fields than what I'm in. But the fact of the matter is there are people who are pursuing the next level in terms of what they're being. And, God doesn't call us to sit back. And, I think that's important that we as business owners really look and say, God wants us to be pursuing excellence. And, that's an important part. He wants us to shine, and he wants us to be able to have avenues to be able to share his message. And, the easiest way to share is when you are successful and being able to have opportunities.
Love that. I love that. What would you say, looking back on your career, has been your single biggest growth opportunity for you personally?
Wow. Well, probably the biggest one currently is I am writing a book on the college recruiting process. I have never written a book before, but I obviously know the content, and I know and understand, having been a college coach. I've interviewed 40 college coaches across all different sports, across all different levels, and really to be able to put information together. And we are in the editing process right now, so it's really exciting. It'll be out in a few months. The title of the book is Looking for a Full Ride, an Insider's Recruiting Guide. And what we are doing with it is really trying to educate high school student athletes and their families, including international students and even families who want to go play at a Christian college, to educate them on what the process looks like from the college coach's perspective. And so they can understand what we're thinking when you're contacting us, and also, what are the things that we want to see in your videos, and when you contact us or when you come to see us on campus. What are the things that we're looking for in terms of leadership and those who will be able to play for us at the next level? So it has been a major undertaking and becoming an author, but it is really exciting, and in a few months it'll be out, and I'll be really excited for it to be over. It's like birthing a baby is what I'm told.
And look, I think it really just goes to show, this is, as you said, this is the first time that you've written a book, and I'm sure there's so much learnings through that. And so someone may be listening today thinking, or watching and thinking, wow, if Renee can do that and get the support to do that, so can I. What I'm going to do is, as you can see, I've got my little pooch in the background who wants to get down. I'm in my home studio today. I'm going to get my daughter to come in and grab him. So let me just type this message. And then what I'm going to get you to do, Renee, is just share with people how they can get in contact with you. I know that you do speaking, and so we'll certainly share with you as well. Actually, why don't you go ahead and share that as I'm typing a message to my daughter to come and get him before he starts barking his head off. How can people get in contact with you?
Absolutely. Well, I would love to connect with all of you and be able to help pour into you if there is something that I can do, whether you have a high school student athlete who wants to play at the college level in the United States. I would love to connect with you. Or maybe you're just a business leader or a community leader, and you just want a little bit of a perspective of your mindset, or if you'd like to have, some training as well, in leadership development. I'd love to connect with you in those different ways. And I will put an offer out to anyone who listens and mentions this podcast, that if the first 15 people to contact me saying, you heard me on the Christian Entrepreneur podcast, that I would love to connect with you. And I will offer you a free 30-minute mindset and leadership training session. And, obviously I do a lot of Skype sessions as well as live sessions, and I travel all across the country and all across the world. And, I've Skyped in to Malaysia, to Canada, all across the US and the UK, and to Australia and New Zealand as well. And so, I would love to be able to connect with your group. If you guys are interested in doing something along those lines, I would love to pour into your group and be able to help serve you and challenge you, and most importantly, challenge you to grow to the next level. And you can contact me at info at lookingforafullride.com, info@lookingforafullride.com. Again, the first 15 people to mention this podcast, I will offer you a free 30-minute session. And, if you want to check out a little bit more of my information, you can see all of my business at www.rlopezcoaching.com, www.rlopezcoaching.com.
Fantastic. And of course, we'll put all of the links on our show notes. And if you're listening, then pull over, and if you're driving, pull over to the side of the road and write this down. But it's ambitiousentrepreneurnetwork.com/TCE07. That's ambitiousentrepreneurnetwork.com/TCE07. We'll put all of Renee's links there. Thank you so much for that generous offer. And thank you very much for sharing. Sometimes challenges do happen, as we mentioned earlier on. There was a change of career across crossroads or a different pathway that you would never have guessed. But now look at what you're able to achieve through being able to impact the lives of many, many people on a global level too. I mean, how amazing is it that we can tap into this technology? We're on the other side of the world, we're seeing one another, we're recording it, and yet we get to work and be able to share our gifts and talents to support others. It's just amazing. And what's really exciting is, being able to grow this community of like-minded people who love the Lord, who are, using his gifts to further his kingdom. And it's been a real pleasure to be able to connect with you today, Renee.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I feel honored and blessed to be able to be a part of this amazing movement you have of connecting like-minded individuals in Christ. I love it.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, just for those of you who are listening and viewing, one of the things that Renee was saying, if you want to start a podcast, this is something that many of the people that we're connecting with, they have a message, they feel called to share, but they're not sure how to get started. So one of the things that I've put together, if you want to grab that, is my free mini training, and it shows my pre and post-production, the step-by-steps that I take, as well as the tools and the resources that I use. Some of them are no cost and low cost. So grab access to that free training, annemariecross.com/mini training, annemariecross.com/mini training, so you can really get your voice, your message out there to impact the lives of those who you are here to serve and support as well. Renee, before we go, may I say a prayer for you, a blessing on you? And
absolutely.
The time that we've spent together, fantastic. Father, we just want to thank you that we could spend some time today. Renee could come on the show and share her insights. Yes, Lord, sometimes we have a vision that we want for our own lives, yet sometimes you say, no, I want you to follow this path. But we know that we are safe in your hands, Lord, and that you are there. We can tap into your strengths. We can pray, get your support. And we just want to thank you that through the support and the love that you've shared, Renee, she can now impact the lives of the many students and the many young people that she's worked with and that are now older and obviously impacting. We thank you that she loves professional development, has continued to grow her own skills and strengths, and now being able to impart that as well. And we just pray for your blessing over her work that she's doing, and of course the clients that she's working with as well. We continue to uphold them, and that everything that she continues to do, which we know that she is, continues to honour you and glorify you. And we just thank you for that. And we ask this in the precious name of your son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you
so much, Renee. It's been a pleasure, and look forward to sharing this message to everyone. And of course, please connect with Renee, get access, and of course, get a copy of the book. Just when is that? By the time this goes live, you may already have got the book out there into the hands of people. When do you have a firm date on that yet, Renee?
Middle spring, probably this of April, May, somewhere in there.
Yeah, fantastic. But anyway, get on your list anyway. So sure that once you do launch and get that ready, you'll notify everybody so that they can grab a copy of that. Thanks very much again for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been honored and blessed to be a part of it.
You've been listening to the Christian Entrepreneurs Podcast, brought to you by BeTheDifferenceMovement.com. Changing the world one message at a time. Do you feel called to influence real change with your message? Join our supportive community of like-minded influencers, thought leaders, and disruptors at www.BeTheDifferenceMovement.com. That's BeTheDifferenceMovement.com.